When we think about what's in a vaccine, we usually focus on the main part, the bit that teaches our immune system what to fight. But today, we're going to talk about something else. One of the most common and, most debated ingredients you'll find in a lot of childhood immunizations.
That's right, aluminum. It's in there, in tiny amounts in so many of the vaccines we rely on. Think diphtheria, tetanus, hepatitis B. And yeah, I know, that might sound a little strange, but there's a really specific reason it's been a key player for, well, a very long time. Its official job title is an adjuvant. And the best way to think of it is as the vaccine's little helper. Its whole purpose is to kick the immune response into high gear, which makes the vaccine way more effective and helps build that long-lasting protection. And this isn't some newfangled idea. We've been using aluminum this way for more than 100 years.
So how exactly does this little helper do its thing? Well, it's actually pretty clever. When a vaccine with aluminum is injected, it causes a tiny bit of inflammation right there at the spot. It's like sending up a flare. It gets the attention of your immune cells, calling them over to say, hey, over here, pay attention to this.
And this method has been a huge part of public health for generations. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of people over the last century getting vaccines that count on aluminum to work properly. It's a tried and true tool in the playbook.
But here's the twist. Despite that long history, that exact same ingredient is now smack dab in the middle of a really intense modern-day debate. So you have this century-old practice that's suddenly facing some very 21st century scrutiny.
So, what's the big deal? Well, the core of it is that some people, including public figures like U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., have raised concerns. They've suggested that there could be a link between these aluminum adjuvants and conditions like autism or food allergies. And these concerns have gotten enough attention that they've been discussed at the very highest levels, including by the U.S. Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices.
So that begs the question, right? If we've been using this for so long, why is this debate heating up now? Well, when you have persistent questions like these, you need really solid answers. And to get those answers, you can't rely on small studies. You need massive, massive amounts of data.
And that is exactly what a team of researchers in Denmark decided to do. They launched this incredible nationwide study, doing a super deep dive into their country's health records to finally get some clarity.
And listen, the scale of this thing is it's staggering. They didn't look at a few hundred people or even a few thousand. They analyzed data from over 1.2 million children.
And this wasn't just a quick snapshot either. They looked at data that was collected over 24 years. 24 years! From 1997 all the way up to 2020. That gives you an amazing long-term view.
And the scope? It was huge. They weren't just checking for one or two things. They investigated the risk for 50, that's 50, different chronic disorders. Just about anything you could think of.
The reason they could pull this off is because Denmark has this amazing system of national health registries. They basically track everyone's health from the day they're born. This let the researchers link every single child's vaccination history, down to the exact milligram of aluminum they got, directly to all their health records over time. It created this incredibly powerful data set that's almost impossible to find anywhere else in the world.
All right, so the moment of truth. After sifting through decades of data on more than 1 million kids, what did they actually find?
The results were just incredibly clear. The researchers used a measurement called a hazard ratio, or HR. All you need to know is that a value of 1.0 means there's no link, no connection at all. And look at these numbers. For autoimmune disorders, allergic disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders, the ratios were all practically 1.0. That means they found no evidence of an increased risk tied to aluminum exposure from vaccines.
And when they drill down into some of those really specific conditions that are often at the center of the debate, same story. For asthma, for autism spectrum disorder, for ADHD, no increased risk. In fact, you'll notice the numbers are all actually slightly below 1, if anything, just crystal clear.
You don't even have to take my word for it. The researchers' own conclusion in their published paper says it all. I'm just going to read it straight out. This nationwide cohort study did not find evidence supporting an increased risk for autoimmune, atopic or allergic, or neurodevelopmental disorders associated with early childhood exposure to aluminum-adsorbed vaccines.
Okay, so let's zoom back out. Let's take this massive piece of scientific work and bring it back into the public conversation. How does this rock-solid data stack up against the concerns that started this whole thing?
Well, it's pretty stark when you put them side by side. On one hand, you have the concern, the argument that there could be a link, and on the other hand, you have this massive study covering over 1.2 million kids for decades, which found absolutely no evidence to support that link.
Now, in science, you got to be precise. The authors were careful to say that their results were incompatible with moderate to large increases in risk. That is a very confident way of saying they really didn't find anything to worry about. They did add a little note that for some extremely rare conditions, they can't statistically rule out a teeny-tiny effect, but for the vast majority of health outcomes, the data was just plain solid.
And this leaves us right here with this really crucial question. In our world today, when massive, carefully collected scientific data runs headlong into deeply held public concern, what comes next? It really shines a light on the challenge we all face. It's not just about doing the science, but about finding a way to talk about it together.